Okay, let's go ahead and start. Good evening. This is Keisha Rogers, and I want to thank you for joining us for this very exciting discussion that we have for this Saturday night, July 12th, with Brian Lance. And as many of you know, we just saw, after a long battle, the very important passage into law, signing into law of President Trump's big, beautiful bill. And there's been a lot of discussion as to what that entails, all of the impact that it has, the fights around it. But we're going to focus, and Brian's going to take us through very detailed on the impact of the big, beautiful bill on our economy and on economic growth, because this really signifies what President Trump's commitment to economic growth, manufacturing, production industry has been since the beginning of his campaign, and to put America first as the key policy. Obviously, a big part of that bill is putting America first through stopping illegal immigration, protecting our borders, putting our American workers first is key in this bill. And so, what are our American workers going to be doing? How are we going to train up that workforce? How are we going to actually bring back the manufacturing, the industries? We're going to be discussing that, and also questions of apprenticeship programs, trade programs, how we're going to train these workers, and then also what is going to be needed in terms of restoring manufacturing back to the United States. Now, before I turn it over to Brian, many of you may have already seen this, but as has been pointed out by Susan Kokinda in her weekly updates, for those of you who are not subscribed to Promethean Action to get the newsletters, to be a subscriber and for our updates, I would really encourage you to do so. But our focus is on how to push forward in this coming 2026 election, and also just in terms of those who are considering running for office and the education of the American people overall. What is the American system of the policies President Trump is pushing, and what is going to be needed in terms of advancing President Trump's economic platform? So with that, I wanted to share just quickly here what we're getting out to Republican Party networks, to trade unions, to to every aspect of the population in terms of the new Republican Party of President Trump. And this is being talked about, Brian and I were just discussing a few moments ago. This is the increased discussion of the model of the American system, of Alexander Hamilton, of Henry Carey, Lincoln. President Trump even addressed this in his cabinet meeting, in terms of the fact that he now has photos of some of these leading American system presidents right in his office. And so President Trump is restoring the system of economic policies and growth that is at the foundation of and the forefront of what our country was founded on. So here you see Main Street, not Wall Street. A new Republican Party is rising. Join the movement, rebuild America, put our workers, our security, and our future first. So that's the first side. So this is a hand card, if you will, that we're getting out. And this is what you should be taking, whether it's to Republican Party events, to work events, trade events, anything of that nature. And here's the other side of it, which is the basics, the new versus the old Republican Party, the new Republican Party versus the right wing GOP wing of the unit party, excuse me. So it's very good. Tariffs, manufacturing, economic nationalism, America first, government as a builder, protecting Social Security and Medicare. One income supports a family, which we've been discussing this very much in terms of, what is it going to take for building the nuclear family foundation, the family foundation, being able to provide for a family, and then peace through strength, peace and ending of the wars. So versus the policies that the uniparty uh, GOP, as far as the policies that the warmongers are calling for. So that's what we have there. That can be found on our website. And I just wanted to show that. Let me just stop share real quick before I turn it over to Brian to get his comments on the big, beautiful bill. But this question of President Trump's comeback, this is just the beginning. It's not the big, beautiful bill is just the beginning. So the question is, how are we going to move forward at a rapid pace, as President Trump is already indicating with the growth perspective? So with that, let me bring Brian in to get his thoughts and comments here. And then after that, we'll open it up for discussion to you all.
All right. Hello, Keisha.
Hi, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, good to be here this evening. July 12th. Momentum, growth. That's what Trump is about. That's he thinks that way, maintaining momentum, maintaining the drive. And I want to start by just emphasizing that the what's been called the one big beautiful bill, or the great big beautiful bill, that's occurring in a broader context. So I'm actually going to start there with the broader context, because what's been underway, has been an expansive development of the economy, and there's a lot of different features to it. First of all, I think most importantly, what President Trump has brought back, as he said, is spirit. He's brought back spirit to the American people. You see this actually in physical terms, if you will, with his entire cabinet. These are real personalities, whether it's Scott Bessent or Kristi Noem, Doug Bergman, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert Kennedy Jr., of course. These are all real personalities, not just kind of faceless bureaucrats in the background who mumble away whenever they appear on camera. What we were used to hearing from past administrations, particularly from the avatar Biden and his Biden collective in the White House. So I think that's the transparency of this. These people are out. President Trump himself, followed Kristi Noem from Homeland Security down here to Texas to respond immediately to the tragic flooding that occurred here in Texas. Everyone's heard about it. I'm not going to dwell on that, but the response was immediate from the administration, and Trump followed quickly after. As soon as he could arrive and not be in the way, he and Melania were down here in Kerrville to thank the first responders, but also meet personally with family members, those who had lost children, who had lost loved ones, and so forth. This is a living, breathing presidential administration, and so that's singular, and so it's producing pride. You see this in the U.S. military service. Every military branch has met their quotas for the year well ahead of time in terms of new enlistees. It's just a reflection of a broader patriotism, but it's broader than that. It's a broad movement inside the coming to the fore, growing out of MAGA, that's crossing typical party lines, and is the basis for the new Republican Party that Keisha started out speaking to just a moment ago. So let me jump right in. First of all, of course, there's the tariffs. The tariffs are one of the most dramatic developments, and we just saw another page of that turn today with a 30% tariff levied starting August 1st against Canada and the entire European Union, subject to, of course, further negotiation. Trump is maintaining his approach. He's a negotiator. He negotiates from a position of strength. And so he's going to continue those negotiations. But those letters have been published publicly. The ones that were sent to Mexico and to the European Union, to von der Leyen and the European Union in Brussels, those went out on Friday, but they were released the next day on Truth Social, for example. So the American people can read those letters and why the decisions are being made. Obviously, fentanyl is an issue with both Canada and with Mexico, as regarding the tariffs being leveled there. Tariff on China is 55%. And other nations, Japan, South Korea, are 25%. This is a serious opening volley, if you will, in creating the conditions for rapid development of U.S. manufacturing. And because this was foreseen, we already have trillions of dollars of new investment pouring into the United States from abroad to get inside that tariff barrier, to get production set up, manufacturing, industrial production set up inside the United States, with resources flowing from companies and corporations from various countries, whether it's Japan or Germany, you name it. That's underway. I want to stress, in terms of the tariffs, that over $100 billion has been raised as of July 1st in tariff revenues. And that's expected, according to Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, that you've heard so much from. That will amount to over $300 billion before the end of the year. And if these tariffs remain where they are, 25, 30% and so forth, 55% in the case of China, it's going to be much more than that. The $300 billion in tariff revenues is a significant revenue increase. And even the Congressional Budget Office, the snarky, stupefied Congressional Budget Office, now admits that the tariffs, even the 10% level of tariffs, will raise $2.8 trillion over the next 10 years. So there's no trade deficit, there's no deficit generation in the big, beautiful bill. I'll just say that up front. I think people are hearing that, but if you haven't, that's the reality. The projections of adding to the deficit and so forth, that it received so much unfortunate media attention, was a lot of hot air and misdirection, as we should be used to hearing. So President Trump and his team are moving ahead on tariffs to support American workers, to support American industry and jobs. Then we have to turn to the workforce. The workforce is critical, as Keisha said. Well, what's happening with the workforce? Again, you're seeing this surge in the American people, the spirit of the American people. Just beginning in the fall of 2024, new enrollments in vocational oriented community colleges jumped 13.9%. You know, the figures come from the clearinghouse, the education clearinghouse. The trade school enrollment is up 6.6% per annum now. The community colleges that have CTE programs, that's career and technical education programs, are are bursting out. They're multiplying. Community colleges, for example, see that this is what students want. So they're rushing to develop and expand these programs, which also is desired by new manufacturing companies and companies that already exist here in the United States, domestic manufacturing companies that are now expanding. They need an expanding young workforce. As the baby boomer workforce retires and so forth, that's one feature of it, but it's also expansion. So the labor force is changing significantly. Here's another aspect of it here in this chart. What we found in the first part of the year, since January 1st, is the employment of native-born Americans expanded since January 1st by 2 million people. Well, the number of non-native-born employees dropped by 52%. An incredible figure. And of course, it's assumed, not precisely, but it's pretty clear that a substantial chunk of that non-native born dropout of the from the workforce, and this is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and their regular employees surveys, household surveys, that a substantial part of that is illegals that are dropping out because of Trump's hardline immigration policy, that illegals will be removed from the workforce and from the United States, whether you want to call them illegal, unauthorized, undocumented, they will be removed. And so suddenly there's this shift, which was never talked about before, certainly on the part of the, Gavin Newsom's and Chuck Schumer's and so forth of the world. But now it's front and center that indeed U.S. employment of American-born workers was being suppressed by this influx of illegals into the workforce. So this is a very significant figure. Also, jobless claims, are down into the first full week of July. Jobless claims are down, and by comparison, just to compare, in December of 2024, with the outgoing Biden administration, there were over 700,000 fewer native-born Americans employed than there were in December of 2019 before COVID hit. 700,000 fewer. Now there's 1.4 million more. Again, underscoring this point. The U.S. workforce is demand. The jobs are opening up. The employment is there. People are taking these jobs, and we have a growing workforce. And that, of course, drives, in turn, vocational education, apprenticeship programs. On apprenticeships, the Department of Labor is combining 11 different programs under one roof to centralize the apprenticeship programs. As you may be aware, President Trump signed an executive order ordering that the Department of Labor and Small Business Administration and so forth, Department of Commerce, work to create 1 million new apprenticeship positions a year to train up, to upskill the workforce of the United States as a productive workforce with rising wages, better standards of living overall, all that goes with that. So that's underway. That's some of the employment picture. Now I want to turn, so labor, a little bit on labor. Okay, but to grow an economy, you need natural resources. Well, here's one just for starters that you might not be aware of. The Brooke Rollins, she's the Secretary of Agriculture, and she has a lot to say about the national forests because they come under the Department of Agriculture. And she announced in New Mexico in June 23rd, that the roads rule is being reversed. The roads rule, which was the result of legislation under Bill Clinton back in the day, and became law in 2010, following, as the new administration came in. The roads rule is regarding national forests. They're the roads that are used to get into the national forests for fire suppression, for disease control, for logging, including clearing of underbrush and all the rest. In fact, since 2010, 2,000 miles a year of roads in the national forest have been decommissioned. 2,000 miles a year. That means not just that you closed the gate and you said nobody can come in, but those roads were decommissioned. They were allowed to, fill in with debris, landslides, etc., river washouts, and so on and so forth. All of it making them impossible. So now, what Brooke Rollins announced in New Mexico was that's being reversed. We're opening these roads up. This affects particularly the 12 major western states. In some states, such as Nevada, Montana, it's a huge part of the territory, the land area of these states is national forest. So this is incredibly important, and will make accessible these forests again for logging. Another executive order of the president. It'll make them, this is not national parks, this is national forests. Make them accessible. Again, this affects 30% of our national forests. So this is a major development. This is part of our national infrastructure, and it was literally going to hell, and the forests, as many people realize, were burning up. So now, move from there, I want to move on to mining, natural resources more broadly. Again, this is something people probably don't follow, but you probably noticed the other day that President Trump announced a 50% tariff now on importing copper. In addition to steel and aluminum, there's now a 50% tariff that's going to be is being instituted on copper imports. I'll come back to that in a second. But just the Department of Interior under Doug Bergman is hard at work in conjunction with Kristi Noem and with Brooks Rollins and others. Doug Bergman and his Department of Interior has moved to accelerate authorizations for the development of new mines in the United States. It's one thing to stop foreign produced resources from coming in, but obviously we need those resources. The U.S. is currently dependent on foreign imports for 50% of our copper. So that copper has to be produced here. Well, right now, there's only 2 operating smelters for copper in the United States. Rio Tinto Zinc's Kennecott mine, which many people may be familiar with in Utah. You may have visited it at some point. And Freeport-McMoRan's Arizona facility called Miami. But those are the only 2 smelters currently operating in the United States to actually smelt ore, copper ore. Well, now so that's a copper. But let's go through quickly a few examples of this. Hurricane Creek Mining Company in Tennessee is opening up the Bryson Mountain Mine again for mining. It was expedited by the Department of Interior to be opened up. There's new EPA permitting processes in place now. So that will be opened up in Claiborne County, Tennessee. They produce specialty steel. Or a coal for specialty steel. This is a coal mine. It also has the potential of rare earths also as well. Ramaco Resources in Kentucky. Well, they're based in Kentucky, but just yesterday, Chris Wright, the Secretary of Energy, was in Wyoming with Ramaco's CEO, with the governor of Wyoming, with the entire congressional delegation of Wyoming, for a ribbon cutting of the Brook Mine. This is a small coal mine, metallurgical coal mine, for producing coal for coke, for blast furnaces, for steel. But they purchased it for $2 million. Ramaco did. But it turns out it's got billions of dollars as assessed by Fluor Corporation. It's accessible as well. It has rare earths worth billions of dollars, perhaps 30 billion in some estimates, of rare earths there. So this ribbon cutting was for the purposes of opening this mine, which will do both rare earths as well as coal mining. And Bergman announced otherwise. Chris Wright is there personally, but Interior Secretary Bergman says that the U.S. government is considering taking an equity participation in the development of the Brook Mine and its capabilities, which may also include processing capabilities for rare earths. So this is a case of the government stepping forward, taking an equity position. It's not finalized yet, but it's definitely a possibility to ensure the rapid development on a full scale at this mine. The pilot mine started up yesterday. The full mine will be developed over the next couple of years. So this is another significant development. And back to copper, we've had since at least the 1990s, we've had refineries and smelters closed down as copper mines closed down because they don't stay open for nothing. They closed down because we said, oh, well, it's cheaper to get it here or there or everywhere, whether it's Chile or Mexico or Canada or Australia. We'll get our copper somewhere else and we'll get it cheaper. Well, we know that the problem with that outsourcing mentality, it left us high and dry as a nation. We've got $1 trillion deficit where Trump is committed to reversing that. So we've got to produce ourselves, obviously. And that means jobs, good paying jobs. So there's a number of copper mines potentially that are now going to be opened up with the 50% tariff. There's the copper world mine known as the Pebble Mine in Alaska. It may be the largest copper mine potential in the world as assessed. I mean, it's not my opinion. It's what it's assessed as. It may be the largest potential copper mine in the world. It'll be several miles wide. The mine itself, open pit mine, copper mine. That was outlawed by the EPA under Biden. That's now in the process of being opened up for development. Gunnison Copper in southeast Arizona has now said they're going to come back online, and with the 50% tariff, that's a definite. Arizona Sonoran Copper Company, also there, obviously in Arizona, is going to be coming back online with their new Cactus project, an expansion of their copper mining. So we have, in addition to Kennecott and Rio Tinto Zinc and McMoran, we got a number of other copper mines and refining and smelting capacity coming online soon. Just to mention, Sarco, which is owned by Grupo Mexico, is now stated that they're going to be opening up their smelter and refinery capacities. The smelter capacity is in Arizona. Their refinery is in Amarillo, Texas, and those will soon be coming online. So this is being addressed directly by the Trump administration. You don't hear about it. You may think, oh, well, Trump just kind of on the fly announces a 50% increase in tariffs on copper. No, he's announcing it based on what's in motion out there, what he's being told, what he's informed of, what he knows about it through consultation, discussion. This is a man who's on the phone, 12, 14 hours a day. and he's moving on these, and his team, I've named several, are moving with him. So okay, so that's resources, and I mentioned permitting, and look, it should just be under I'll take just an example: the Council on Environmental Quality. That may be just words to you, but that's the people that supposedly advise the president on the environment. Well, of course, everything's turned right side up now. All right, so the Council on Environmental Quality is suspending its implementation regulations. It has suspended its implementation regulations, and it's ordering all federal departments and agencies to develop updated, accelerated permitting processes and evaluation processes. This includes shorter report times, faster turnaround times, like 30 days to turn around an EPA report. To get these reports and get these decisions, whether they're for or against a given project, those decisions are going to be made pronto to move projects ahead. Just to underscore this, one of the largest current copper mines in development, the Resolution copper mine down in Arizona, it's taken 29 years, and it's only now just getting to the point of beginning an actual build out and the potential for production. 29 years. 29 years is the average for a copper mine to be developed in the United States, the second worst in the whole world. All right. So this is all being changed. It's substantial. It's important. And the EPA itself, if there's disagreement and so forth, contention and so on, those decisions are repealed to the National Environmental, the Council on Environmental Quality, and to the National Environmental Policy Act folks. So that all now takes on a different color. It's no longer green; it's pro-growth. So we turn quickly to manufacturing. Manufacturing is said, as Trump says, to take off a lot like a riot, or like a rocket. Yeah, go ahead and put that up. Here's manufacturing. Figure on manufacturing from as you can see, from the Federal Reserve, specifically industrial production. That's a broader category. That's everything but construction, basically. And you see from January 2025 through April of 2025, the leap upward in terms of total industrial production. So we'll just leave that. That's what 2017 as being the index date for 100. So everything above that is increase, and you see that substantial increase since January of 2025. Metalworking machinery orders up 17.9% in the first 4 months of 2025. There's 4 million manufacturing jobs to be filled between now and 2030. That's according to Deloitte and to the Manufacturers Institute. So we've got a lot of jobs to fill. And that's going to require robotics. You can turn to the next slide there, just to show where the United States stands right now. You know, we're about 10th in the world on the use of robotics, of so-called manufacturing automation. The next slide, if you could, Keisha. The next graph. We've got about 295 robots for every 10,000 employees, but in part because we're going to have trouble filling all these manufacturing jobs, and there's probably going to be many more besides what is currently more or less linearly projected, because Trump is committed to building back America as a manufacturing superpower. The utilization of robots is going to increase exponentially. It's going to need to increase. The vocational schools, the training of the new workforce, that's trades. That's construction, that's welding, that's electrical, that's HVAC, etc. Manufacturing jobs, assembly, the running of power equipment, those jobs, they're paying 25, max $35 an hour. That can't support a family. Those wages have got to go up very substantially, or the buying power of those dollars have got to go up substantially. And for that to happen, robotics has got to play a significant role. So I just want to mention that in passing. But I would want to point out that the surge in U.S. manufacturing and industrial production, this is unique to the United States. This isn't happening in Japan. It's not happening in Europe. It's not happening in Japan, in China, or Japan. It's happening uniquely in the United States. This is a result of domestic policies that this expansion is occurring in the United States. And I have this list of 39 new manufacturing facilities that have been either they're under construction now or have been announced as firm commitments, land built, bought, and that sort of thing. Major facilities across the United States. President Trump mentioned that 7 of them at least are under construction. 39 so far. These are major corporations coming in of all sizes and shapes, different fields and so forth, not just the NVIDIAs and whatnot. I can rattle off some of the names. If the people are interested, we can come back to that. But that's occurring. So from there, I want to move quickly to energy, because to power, this is robot density. And if you can follow it, there at 295 is the United States. You see the Republic of South Korea off on the left with 1,012. That's the highest rate of robot utilization. That's again per 10,000 employees, and on down to France on the other end of the scale. This is the leading industrialized countries that are shown here. We're poking along, and that's something we're going to have to reverse. All right, moving on to energy.
Brian, if you wanted me to go back to another slide before that, I can. I just lost my slides there for a moment. So.
Oh no, that's okay. We're fine. We're fine.
Okay, great.
The Department of Energy just released its resource adequacy report, which was to fill President Trump's executive order on strengthening the reliability and security of the United States electrical grid. So that report came out July 7th. And that grid affirms the energy emergency that the United States is in. I want to underscore that. While we absolutely have every reason to be optimistic about what President Trump and his team are achieving, and also what the one big, beautiful bill will add to it, the point is we're in a deep hole. We've lived in a period of economic collapse that basically can be bookended between 1971 and 2025, at least tentatively, between 1971 and 2025, an physical economic collapse in the United States. And you can see that most clearly in terms of the lack of investment in infrastructure and particularly, urban, but also otherwise, and in other aspects of American life, including poverty levels and the rotting away of our urban cities. I'm not going to go into that in detail here. We've talked about it in great detail in the past. But the resource adequacy report emphasizes, I'll just quote briefly, in the absence of robust and rapid energy policy reform that prioritizes use of America's abundant natural resources and fast infrastructure build-out, resource inadequacy will prevent development of new manufacturing in America, prohibit the reindustrialization of the U.S. economy, drive up the cost of living for all Americans. That could have been taken from my book, by the way, published November 5th, the day of the election. But it's here in the Department of Energy's report, just out July 7th. It emphasizes that, of course, wind and solar is completely unreliable. We require fossil fuels and nuclear power. We need at least 100 gigawatts of new power, but currently, while we're facing 104 gigawatts of plant closures, that's primarily coal, between now and 2030, only 22 gigawatts of firm baseload power is being added. The rest is wind and solar batteries. And saying this won't work. It won't work. You can't power industry. You can't power data centers on this. It won't work. Just to underscore it, they list a series of emergency actions which were taken by the Department of Energy, as well as, of course, hearings and so forth. But emergency actions taken by the Department of Energy to keep plants, for example, the J.H. Campbell power plant in West Olive, Michigan, up and operating to prevent blackouts, power outages. The Pennsylvania generation station in Eddystone in Pennsylvania to run past its retirement, scheduled retirement. In Duke Energy's territory, they ordered plants there to operate ongoing under extreme conditions. That is, even if producing unacceptable levels of effluent, to keep those plants operating to present brownouts and blackouts over the course of the last 2 months. So there's every reason to understand that we've got to build, baby, build. So go to the next slide. I want to mention here, and again, this is before getting into the one big beautiful bill, but the nuclear investment is catching fire, and an example of that is Fermi America, which is former Secretary of Energy Rick Perry's project. He's the former governor of Texas as well. He was the Secretary of Energy in the first administration. In Amarillo, Texas, and here you see it from the local newspaper, the Amarillo Tribune down here in Texas. And that's a schematic of what this facility will look like. Rick Perry and his firm, which he's co-founded, Fermi America, has filed with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to build out Hypergrid, a massive AI campus, which will probably also produce power to the grid as well, which will combine 4 AP1000 nuclear power plants, along with natural gas and solar energy, in a massive facility, 5,679 acres. This is near the Pantex plant. That's our nuclear weapons plant. It's the only U.S. weapons arming and disarming plant in the United States. It will be put up there. It's being planned in conjunction with Texas Tech University, located there in Amarillo University, major engineering-focused university. It exemplifies the kind of new thinking that's going on. AP1000s are the third generation plus reactor. I've talked about it at length for at least 9 months, emphasizing the singular importance of the AP1000. We can talk about small modular reactors and so forth. those are the earliest those are coming online in terms of significant megawattage is 2028, 2030, and beyond. AP1000s are being built now. 4 now operate in China. 8 more are being built in China. We built 2 here in the United States, in Georgia. South Carolina now wants one added to one of their major facility. If I can find the name here, the VC Summer site. The Holtec different reactor is reopening the Palisades plant in Michigan. Arizona wants an additional nuclear reactor in Arizona, where they're building these data centers and chip plants. New York State, of all states, their governor, the Democratic governor of New York, now is taking bids on nuclear reactor facilities for a plant for New York State. Wisconsin, Keisha brought this up to my attention to this the other day. The legislature has just passed, the governor of Wisconsin, Democrat governor, has signed legislation. Wisconsin is, for the first time since the 1970s, saying, hey, it's okay to build nuclear power plants in Wisconsin. So this is a sea change going on. This is the result of all our work of Promethean action, Promethean PAC. It's the work of MAGA. It's the work of the Trump administration from before they even set up offices in Washington, D.C. This was in motion. And gold standards in science are back in vogue. The gold standard in science is now going to rule the roost. Healthcare, just turning briefly to what Robert Kennedy Jr. and his team are doing. You might have seen Tuesday of this last week, the first full week in July, the cabinet meeting, President Trump announced that there will be, within the next year or two, there will be a massive tariff implemented on pharmaceuticals imported into the United States. A major tariff on pharmaceutical imports into the United States. He's giving them lead time so they can move their facilities back to the United States, set up shop here. But that's going to go forward. But as well, if you're not aware, the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Bhattacharya has announced that National Institute of Health funded research is now available on the website. It's now open to the public. The assessments, the results of work, ongoing work, and so forth, the reports are all available to the public. The Food and Drug Administration, Dr. Marty Markley, has announced the Food and Drug Administration is now making public to the public their findings on big pharma research, new drugs, so the public can see what the Food and Drug Administration is issuing in terms of findings. You have pharmaceutical companies that say, oh, well, the FDA told us to go back and slightly modify our figures and do a little work here and there and tidy up our paperwork, but we'll have clearance very soon for our new drug. When in fact, the letter from the FDA to that pharmaceutical company said, you got to run a whole new trial. This is inadequate. This is incompetent. So those letters are going to be public, are being made public right now on the Food and Drug Administration website. So these are very important in terms of, again, transparency. And it's also important for medical research, for what the National Institute of Health is funding and what they're finding and what the latest developments are, for other pharmaceutical companies to know what other pharmaceutical companies are being told. This is this is gold standard in terms of science. Um, and finally, just in terms of agriculture, I just you know, if it's not clear already, there's no amnesty in terms of illegal or unauthorized uh, uh, labor in agriculture. Brooke Rollins made this clear at that same cabinet meeting. Uh, we're going to work with the farmers. We're going to work with ranchers. We're going to guarantee that the farmers have, essentially through a concierge service, and that was the term Brooke Rollins used, to make sure they've got the workers they need. But it's not going to be amnesty, and we're going to move as rapidly as possible to automation and an American workforce in agriculture, as opposed to otherwise. The Department of Transportation also needs to be mentioned. I mean, this is air traffic control. Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, is now also the head of NASA. That's also been announced. These developments keep coming. Um, and uh, and this is incredibly important work that's including the clearing of the backlog, the backlog of uncompleted projects, funded projects, but backlog projects that never made it out of the office in the Department of Transportation under Buttigieg, under Biden. Hundreds of billions of dollars of projects, including in the Carolinas hit by the hurricanes, projects that money never moved. Those resources were never committed. Bridges and so forth. That whole backlog is being cleared under Sean Duffy's leadership. So I want to turn briefly to the one big beautiful bill, very briefly, since it's already late. But I wanted to underscore just a couple of key points. Home building, no tax on tips, the no tax on overtime, the increase in the child tax credit to $2,200 per child. All of this putting money into the pockets of working families so that they can help them afford to buy a home. We also just had the announcement by Bill Pulte, who heads the Federal Housing Finance Agency that oversees Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and a dozen different banks, federal banks under them, announcing that now rent will now be part of history of the financial history to be considered for mortgages. In other words, young families that are paying rent, have been paying rent, that will be counted alongside of credit card history, et cetera, et cetera. This is being done without a lot of paperwork. They've already got the program. It's called Vantage Score 4.0. It's already, banks already use it, et cetera, or have access to it. It's no new big setup. This goes into effect immediately. And banks that use this new approach, which gives credit to young families for their rental history in qualifying to buy a new home, will get special treatment by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the banks have every reason to go with this. This is not huge. We need a lot more, but these are important steps being taken already. Remember, this is just the first 6 months of the Trump presidency being taken to address everything that needs to be addressed across the U.S. economy, including, of course, very importantly, the workforce. And hopefully we'll be getting rid of Jerome Powell very soon at the Federal Reserve. There's a lot of noise and rumors about that. We'll see how that plays out. But if we can get interest rates down, which absolutely is required, needed, overdue, because there's no inflation, prices, gas prices are down, et cetera. To get mortgage rates down, that would be even more important in terms of helping helping in the housing market for young families. Then I'll just turn quickly here in terms of advanced nuclear. I think it's clear to people uh, the dividends for wind, solar, the big green new steel is gone. Those tax dividends are gone. They'll be completely gone by 2027. They're being phased out. That's very rapid. But there's a carve out for nuclear and geothermal secondarily, but primarily nuclear has no limit in terms of how long that program, those dividends can run, tax breaks can run uh, in terms of nuclear power. That's the 45Y and 48E clean energy credits. They remain in place for construction up to 40 or 60% of the cost of production of a plant can be can be written off in taxes over time. Likewise, per kilowatt repayments and so forth. So we're leveraging a program here to build nuclear power out of the hole that was put in. Remember, we're not. This is not an even playing field. We undercut the entire nuclear industry in the United States, starting back with the 3 Mile Island hopes. So we've got to build ourselves up. We got to build out the supply chains. We got to build out a productive capability here, and that's what the Trump administration is committed to with its executive orders, and that's going forward. The one big business, big beautiful bill, concretized that, and then NASA and the Golden Dome. Look, the Golden Dome is getting not 25 billion. That's what's in the big beautiful bill, but Space Force is ending up with another 40 billion. So that's really more than 60 billion for the Golden Dome, and that will play out in part in long-term expenditures. That is, that can be for contracts that last for multiple years, which means it can be cutting-edge investments, and corporations can invest long-term into cutting-edge projects. A project that may take 5 or 10 years to see fruition can be financed. On NASA, it looked like the budget might be cut from 25 billion down to 16 billion, but with the one big beautiful bill, it's back up over 25 billion. I mean, we'll see how everything settles out once we get through with the remainder of the fiscal 2026 budget. And finally, the border is closed, right? The 140 billion, well, actually 165 billion for ICE, border, immigration and customs and border protection and Department of Homeland Security overall, 165 billion. This is building out the conduits that will move illegals, unauthorized, or however you want to speak of them, out of the country. They'll move them from cities around the United States. You know that the DOJ is already overturning sanctuary city laws and so forth to process these individuals, and families will be moved to temporary detention centers as way stations from which people will be processed. Court hearings will occur as required, and people will be moved out. That process will be going on over the next several years as 10,000 more border and customs protection officers are trained and put on duty, 6,000 ICE additional employees and so forth. This is a big training program, but it's now underway. And that will be extremely important as we move forward in developing our domestic workforce, raising wage levels, and meeting the new industrial capacities, energy build out, and manufacturing capacities that are on their way. So I'll conclude there. Thanks for hanging in there and taking all this in. There's a lot more in the details, but I hope that's useful. Country is moving forward. It is taking off like a rocket. Thank you.